Hi, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Ken Carter. I'm the Charles Howard Candler Professor of Psychology at Oxford College of Emory University. I'm a textbook author, and like you, I teach introductory psychology. For the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to walk you through how an interview with a journalist helped me to tackle the challenge of classical psychology examples to help to teach critical thinking. This presentation is going to give you some ideas about how to tackle the Stanford Prison experiment as a way to teach critical thinking. I'll also provide you with some readings for your students, along with an assignment that can be used as either an in-class, small group discussion, or even a written assignment. You can find links to all the articles I'm going to mention at this website, drkencarter.com/psych121, along with a link to a questionnaire that both students and faculty can take about introductory psychology. I'm doing a study with one of my students. As you know, over the last several years, some classic studies in psychology have come under a lot more scrutiny. These include things like Phineas Gage, the Rosenhan pseudo-patient study, and of course, yes, the Stanford Prison experiment. Now, the Stanford Prison experiment, Zimbardo and others randomly assigned 21 college-age students, all men, to the role of either guard or prisoner in a fake prison constructed in the basement of a college residence hall. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks, but conflict between the prisoners and guards emerged on the second day. The guards showed abusive behavior, and the prisoners were compliant because of the power of the situation and the power differential and the roles of the guard and the prisoner. Things got so bad the experiment was ended after only 6 days. Sound familiar? Even after the study, there was a fair amount of controversy about what actually happened. But in 2018, there were lots of articles about the validity of the experiment. Let me give you a quick rundown of 6 different themes of the controversy as outlined by McDermott in 2019. For a deeper dive, you can take a look at this article, but there are lots of others out there. Number 1, the Stanford Prison experiment really isn't an experiment at all. I cover social psychology fairly late in the semester, but I cover research designs on the second day. By this time, most students should be able to recognize there wasn't really a control group. At most, the Stanford Prison experiment is a one-trial demonstration. Also, although the goal was to look at the power of roles, the Stanford Prison experiment didn't really represent a real prison environment in the least. The guards received no professional training, the prisoners hadn't done anything wrong, and everyone knew they were only going to be there for a short amount of time. And the prisoners really weren't that representative of a real prison population. Third, the guards were probably acting. One guard in particular studied acting in high school and even tried on a new Southern accent during the entire time. He was quoted in an article by saying, "I took it on as kind of an improv exercise, creating this despicable guard persona." Now, despicable guard persona isn't the kind of role they were supposed to be testing out. Rather than being a demonstration of strong situations and role conformity, some researchers feel the guards may have been following the lead of Zimbardo and obeying his authority rather than conforming to a particular role. Number 5, a failed replication. In 2006, the BBC tried to replicate it with a few tweaks and failed to show the same results. And number 6, a myriad of ethical issues that the experiment showed, not the least of which was that Zimbardo was the PI of the study who also played the role of the prison superintendent. But the Stanford Prison Study, or demonstration, is one of the most well-known studies in psychology. So here's the challenge. Should we discuss them as we always have, toss them in favor of more recent research, or do something else? Like many of you, I've tried thinking about this a lot, but an email I've received forced me to think about it even more. In 2018, I was contacted by Ben Blum. He was writing an article about the Stanford Prison experiment, and he had some questions about it. You may get calls like this too. Reporters working on a story, and they want the opinion of a psychologist. Usually they're looking for a quote, but Ben seemed to want something a little bit more. He's a lot more challenging than many reporters that have interviewed me. He wanted to know more information about what I knew about Zimbardo and what I thought Zimbardo's goals were for the study. He also pressed me on about how good I thought the science was, and I mentioned some of the things I just told you. And then he asked me this question. Well, if you know it's not a good experiment, then why do you teach it? Part of me was kind of stumped. I'm not a social psychologist, and like many of you, I teach social psychology section as a review of some of the classic studies such as this one. Studies that we know have received a lot more scrutiny. My response was something I still believe. I wanted the students to be wary of the power of strong situations, and I was sort of using the study as an example of that. After the interview, I sort of forgot about it. Then I read his article, and then I read 2 more articles that featured my quote. But what's more, I still wasn't sure what to do. Like you, I only have a limited amount of time to discuss different topics, so what do? Do I eject the Stanford Prison Study for a newer example, or teach it like I always have? The answer? Why not do both? So here's what I did. I had my students watch the classic documentary of Stanford Prison Study. It's really from Zimbardo's point of view. It's really easy to provide a YouTube link to parts of the documentary for students to watch on their own, and they're usually spellbound by it. Then I had them read the passage from my own intro textbook and a few other textbooks, again, just to sort of prepare them for discussion before class. And then I did something that the students hate that I do. I show them the other side of the argument. I provide them with the Medium article. You can read the article in Medium for free, and there's even a podcast version of it. Sometimes they even give students a deeper dive. If they want more review articles that can provide a more nuanced critical analysis, they can do that as well, and I've provided a few for you on my website. Once they've done all of that, they're ready for a discussion. But rather than just having an open discussion, I posed my own dilemma. I said, okay, I'm revising my intro textbook for a new publisher. What should I do? Should I keep the Stanford Prison Study the same, remove it entirely, or do something else with it? When I do this assignment as a group discussion, I have the students try to come to a consensus about how the study should be covered and to sort of defend the decision of the group. As a written assignment, I have them edit the textbook entry and to defend their edits. They can either argue to revise it, remove it, or move it to a new section and explain why. It's a great critical thinking exercise. In fact, Burrows and Griggs have an article in the journal Scholarship of Teaching and Learning in Psychology that walks you through some specific areas of the APA undergraduate psychology major learning outcomes linked to the Stanford Prison Study. It's a great way to revisit some of those goals later in the semester, and the link to the articles on my website. How does it work? I absolutely get more engagement from students than a pure presentation of the Stanford Prison Study. And I don't get very many students that say it should be removed, oddly, but I do get a fair amount that say that it should be in a different chapter, like the ethics chapter or someplace else. And one student had a really great insight. He responded that he thought that Zimbardo got caught up in his own strong situation. Now, while you can't do this with every classic study, it's a great way to have students take a deeper dive into a few. Now, this is the main way that I teach this topic. So, I'm curious about you. How do you tackle the Stanford Prison Study? Let's discuss, and I'm happy to answer questions about what I did. Thank you so much.